called, surprisingly called Kempton Bunton, who lives in Newcastle. He's a sort of taxi driver, lorry driver, unemployed enthusiast, if you like, a classic British eccentric, who starts a campaign, one of many campaigns. This one is for free TV licenses for old age pensioners. So he goes out on the streets, he tries to gather signatures, etc., 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 and comes up against a bit of a brick wall. And in fact goes to prison for a couple of weeks because he refuses to pay his own TV license. So in the story, he steals a very famous portrait of the Duke of Wellington from the National Gallery in London. And this is the only time in its history, before or since, that anyone has stolen anything from the National Gallery. He takes the painting, he puts it in the back of his cupboard in the back bedroom in Newcastle, and he sort of holds it to ransom. And he sends sort of ransom demands anonymously in oblique and eccentric letters, both to the newspapers and to the government, saying, I will give you back this painting if you give this money to charity. He then gets rumbled through circumstances too complex to explain, and he then has to take the painting back. It's a great British story. It's one of those stories which, if it's not prefaced by the phrase based on a true story, you'd spend the time scratching your head thinking, what the hell is all this about? But because you know it's real, it's beguiling. I read it a bit like an Ealing comedy. It felt very much within the family of those great films from the early 60s, the films that were being made during the course of our story, because it's about a small man telling truth to power. Most of those Ealing comedies, like The Man in the White Suit, Passport to Pimlico, they're really doing the same thing. They're political films with a small p about ordinary people standing up to government and saying, this is what I want and this is how I'm going to get it. And in line with those Ealing comedies, it has this wonderful tone, which is not a kind of knockabout comedy, and it's not a farce, but it's light-hearted, it's comedic, it has moments of pathos and drama, but it is full of laughs as well. I think the writers, Clive and Richard, have done the most marvellous job in finding this equilibrium between fun and fact. There's certainly a sort of thread of philosophy in the film, which emerges towards the end of the film. The philosophy that the central character seems to espouse, this sense of connectedness, that we're all responsible for each other, and we're all related to each other. Obviously, in these current climates, that feels particularly appropriate. Kempton Bunton is a rascal. You know, he's not a heroic hero. He's a rascal. We see him steal flowers to put on his own daughter's grave because he's too mean to buy any. We hear that he's nicked loads of toilet roll from the local pub. You know, he's a rascal. Don't get me wrong. He's not like Nelson Mandela at all. But because he's rascally, he's also charming, and because he's got such confidence and energy about his madcap schemes, he's a sort of Professor Brainstorm of the revolution, and it's impossible not to absolutely fall in love with him, particularly in Jim's performance, which is funny and winning and crazy and larger than life, and yet sensitive and true and real. It's a really marvellous performance. I mean, it's one of the great performances, I think. I think he's one of those people who's a sort of an eternal activist, and we need those people. We need those people in all cultures. Those people who are constantly a bit of grit in the shoe of authority, and constantly questioning everything that's thrown at them. Even I was surprised by how transformational Helen was, how prepared she was to get out of the Queen's clothes or Catherine the Great's clothes into these. She was wearing padding. She described her. We talked a lot about her walk. She wanted to walk like a kind of broken boxer. you know, with these sort of rounded shoulders and these drooping forearms. And we talked a lot about what you know, makeup, and she was completely unvain about the whole process. And I think, as you say, I think people will be astonished and delighted by what she's done. Oh, I think it's a laugh. I think I'll have a nice time having a laugh. And it's uplifting, and it's fun, and it's, you know, absolutely as British as you like. And I think you leave the cinema with a big, smacking smile on your face.
Will the defendant please stand? Kempton Bunton, you stole from the National Gallery a priceless portrait of the Duke of Wellington by Goya.
Not very good, is it?
We're convinced that the Goya has been stolen by a highly professional international criminal gang. Almost certainly a trained commando.
You all right? Bit of biscuit. I can explain.
Shock, yes, I'm shocked. There's a stolen masterpiece in my wardrobe.
For what? Charity. What's he actually asking for?
Old people should have free television viewing.
I'm living with a madman.
I'm tackling social injustice. I'm like Robin Hood.
You're an idiot.
The taxpayer paid for that painting. They could have given thousands to war widows and pensioners. It's for the greater good of mankind.
Mankind? What about your own kind? How long will you get?
I don't know. 10 years.
You could have told me. We could have dealt with it together.
He is not a thief. He borrowed your Goya to do a bit of good in this world.
Every time someone gets cut off from the rest of us, this country becomes a foot shorter.
人々を思い、そして優しく寄り添った名もなき男の感動の物語。ゴヤの名画と優しい泥棒。